The series started with a messy young man entering a company called Rand Enterprises. In front of the receptionist, he said he wanted to meet Harold Meacham and said that he was the heirs of the company. The receptionist did not believe the young man's words and called security to evict him. The young man, who claimed to be named Danny Rand, was felt annoyed, then forced his way by using his kung fu martial arts skill. Finally, he arrived at the company's top brass room, which was currently held by Ward and Joy Meacham. Danny immediately remembered them and said that he was Denny Rand, the son of Wendell Rand and Heather Rand. Ward and Joy, who heard this of course, did not believe Danny's words, because all members of the Rand family, including Danny, were rumored to have died in a plane crash at the Himalayas 15 years ago. The next day, Danny, who doesn't know anyone, is seen in the city park practicing kung fu. It was there that he met a woman named Colleen Wayne, who was posting brochures for the martial arts dojo she was open. Danny, who was interested, asked Colleen for a job, as he felt he could train children with his kung fu technique. But Colleen is not convinced and feels uncomfortable with Danny's presence. Elsewhere, Ward walked into a top apartment unit. The penthouse looks so secretive until it uses a fingerprint as a security system. In the penthouse lived Ward and Joy's father, named Harold Meacham, who was isolated because he had been reported dead for 10 years, and the only person who knows about his condition is Ward Meacham. The next day, Danny returned to Rand Enterprises to meet Joy, because they were once close friends. Danny hopes that with a little explanation, maybe Joy can trust him. Instead of listening to Danny's explanation, Joy drugged him with the drink he served. When he woke up, Danny was bound and in a psychiatric hospital. The doctor who handled him then asked what could prove that he was the real Denny Rand. Danny replied that after the plane crash, he was rescued by 2 monks from Canlan and trained in kung fu martial arts to become an Iron Fist. All these explanations, of course, made the doctor even more convinced that Danny was really crazy. After that, Danny was helped by another patient to get access to a payphone. He also used this chance to call Colleen. Danny asked Colleen for help to free him, but Colleen refused because she didn't know Danny and didn't want to disturb with Danny's problem. Harold and Ward then get information about the phone call. They began to suspect that Danny might really be the sole heir of the Rand Enterprises. If that's true, then they have to investigate everything about Danny and keep him away from everyone. In her office, Joy began to think about the possibility that the person she thought was crazy was the real Danny. Joy also began to think about what could prove that the man was the Danny she knew. Joy then sent a pack of candy, which Danny received directly. The next day, Ward was immediately ordered by his father to meet Colleen as the only person Danny had contacted. Ward was there to offer a deal with Colleen. If Colleen would sign a paper stating that Danny had bothered her, she would get some money in return. The letter can be used by Ward to keep Danny in the hospital longer. Ward's offer makes Colleen even more suspicious of why a high-ranking company official is taking care of the crazy man. Colleen also suspects that what Danny said might be the truth. After hearing the explanation from Danny, Colleen immediately went to Rand Enterprises and returned the offer file, including the candy pack from Danny. Unexpectedly, the results matched Joy's expectations, where as a child she and Danny always separated chocolate candies from other candies. With that result, Joy finally believed that he was the real Danny. After being confined in the hospital for so long, Danny finally escapes by using his Iron Fist powers. Danny destroys the hospital's iron door and escapes to Colleen's training dojo. Even Colleen was rejected Danny at first time, then she was eventually forced to let him stay there for a while. The next day, Danny immediately went to meet Joy, who believed that he was his childhood friend. Unexpectedly, Joy thinking that Danny show up only for money, so Joy and Ward offered to give $100 million, as long as Danny was willing to change his identity and live life as a new person. That because Joy and Ward have struggled all this time to build and growing Rand Enterprises until now. With Danny's current presence, it will only complicate all the problems. Danny, who heard this, immediately rejected Joy's offer, because his come is not just about money. After that, Danny went to the graves of his mother, father, and himself, which were actually empty because their bodies were never found. There he also realized that there was someone who always took care of their graves. That person is Jerry Hogarth, a lawyer who used to work for Danny's father. After hearing all of Danny's statements, Jerry believes him and she promises to do whatever it takes to help Danny. Now they just need to find evidence that can state and prove that he is the real Danny Rand. Danny then goes to a hospital to retrieve the files on him. Unfortunately, once there, the Meacham family had already sent someone to burn all the evidence. In the midst of this situation, Danny received a bowl from Joy. A bowl that he made as a birthday present for Joy. Apparently, in the bowl there are fingerprints that can prove that he is the real Danny Rand. Thanks to this, Danny can prove his identity, and he was entitled to receive 51% of Rand Enterprises shares. With majority ownership, Danny officially became the company's highest shareholder and could make business decisions. In his first meeting, Danny also proposed that they sell medicines to the general public at production prices. This meant that the company would not make any profit on it. Danny felt that they should not get more profit from the suffering of others. Since he had the highest shares, his decision could not be denied by anyone. One night, Danny was curious about Ward's agitation when to leave, so he decided to follow him. Unable to get into the apartment, Danny sneaked into the outside window. But as he was one to enter the window, Danny was suddenly pushed and ended up falling. The next day, Danny realized he was in Harold's apartment. Harold is finally telling that 10 years ago he was indeed dead and brought back to life by someone called the Hand. Unfortunately, Harold must live under the Hand's orders. He is not allowed to leave the apartment or even meet anyone except Ward. In fact, every decision made in the company is also fully controlled by the Hand. After seeing his ability, Harold also asked Danny for help to kill the Hand, which that to be Danny's job as an Iron Fist. At night, Danny invites Joy to visit his apartment. While relaxing, Joy was suddenly attacked by a group of people holding an axe. The men suddenly kidnapped Joy, but they were defeated by Danny. After saving Joy, Danny took her to Colleen's dogo so she could take refuge there. Danny then went to meet the base of the group that had just attacked them. The group is a business opponent of the Rand Enterprises who is upset because they intend to buy the dock for themselves. But after Danny mentioned about the Hand, the leader of the group suddenly got scared and immediately apologized to Danny. The next day, Danny received a package from someone named Madame Gale. The package contained a dragon symbol that exactly matched with the one on Danny's chest. Madame Gale is known as a woman who has a heroin trade route. Danny immediately conveyed this to Ward, but Ward was not interested because he only wanted to manage the company's business. In the evening, Danny visits the dojo and meets Claire, who is Colleen's new student. There, Danny wants to ask Colleen for help to overcome the heroin business. The two of them immediately went into action and arrived at a base. Danny is curious about the contents of a container there, so he approaches the container and ends up locked inside the container. It turned out that there was a drug maker and a guard. Danny and the guard start fighting, but the drug maker incidentally gets stabbed. Danny immediately takes the drug maker away by jumping into the car driven by Colleen. Long story short, they'd brought the drug maker to Claire's house because she was a former nurse. In a critical situation, the drug maker also said that he was forced to do this job because his daughter had been kidnapped by the Hand. Claire, who heard that, was immediately surprised because Danny had just dragged them all into big trouble. What just happened made the Hand furious with the guard. He called the guard, then stabbed him to death. Besides, the Hand also sent messages to some of his members who were spread in various countries. On the other hand, the drug maker Radovan Brunevic's condition was getting worse. Claire repeatedly urged him to take Radovan to the hospital, but he refused that. Radovan knew very well, once he was taken to the hospital, he would be immediately arrested by the Hand's men. The only thing Radovan wants is his daughter Sabina. Danny is currently trying to save Sabina. Danny is desperate to meet Madame Gale to save Sabina. There, Danny was challenged in a ritual to face the 3 best fighters. The loser must leave the city. The three fighters include knife-wielding twins, a poisonous killer woman, and a sword and gun expert. Unexpectedly, Danny was able to exceed Madame Gao's expectations. Danny managed to defeat all the fighters with the help of instructions from the master. Seeing this, Madame Gao, who panicked, immediately took out Sabina and used it to make Danny cancel the ritual. At that time, Danny was upset and wanted to attack Madame Gao, but Madame Gao first attacked him with inner power, or we called it Chai. On the other hand, Claire and Colleen were finally forced to take Radovan to the nearest hospital, due to his condition getting worse. Unfortunately, instead of getting treatment, Radovan was kidnapped by the Han's men. At his place, Harold was visited by two of Madame Gao's men, and he was interrogated about his involvement with Danny Rand. Because Harold tried to cover up Danny's existence, he was ganged up on by them. Luckily, Danny, who had been there, immediately came out and finished off Madame Gao's two men. After that, Harold also called Ward and told him to dispose of the bodies of the two men in Pelham Bay Park. The next day, Madame Gao is seen coming to the Rand Enterprises. Her arrival makes Danny think that Madame Gao may have a relationship with his father. Danny's preoccupation with Madame Gao left him with no time to attend to company matters. The company board was disappointed with him, so they agreed to expel Danny, Ward, and Joy from the company. While Ward was on his way, he was notified that his account had been emptied. He immediately went to see his father and protested. Harold was known about the personal account that Ward had been hiding all this time. Therefore, he emptied the account because he felt betrayed by his son. An angry Ward finally decided to kill his father and drown his body in Pelham Bay Park. At the same time, Danny, Colleen, and an army of gangsters are seen visiting a factory. The factory was one of Madame Gao's factories, and sure enough, as Danny suspected, they managed to find Radovan there, unfortunately. They were too late because Radovan was found dead. After killing his own father, Ward feeling guilty. This could also be due to Ward's heroin supply, which has run out. Even the news of his dismissal from the company was also received by Ward. He also thinks maybe it's time for him to rest and live life freely. Meanwhile, Danny, Colleen, and Claire are on their way to China, where Madame Gao's factory is still related to the Rand Enterprises. Upon arrival, Colleen and Danny will be tasked with entering the factory, while Claire will be assigned to stand guard and watching outside. While on guard, Claire saw the arrival of Madame Gao and her two men, so she immediately gave the code to Danny and Colleen. Hearing the code, Danny and Colleen finally split up. Colleen faced the woman with the sword, while Danny faced the drunk warrior. After defeating the enemies, Danny, Colleen, and Claire finally rushed in a room, and they faced Madame Gao and her two men. From the fight, Danny and Colleen realized that Madame Gao had put poison in the weapons of her men, and the reaction was exactly the same as what happened to the pilot of Danny's family plane. Because of this, Danny also knew that Madame Gao was the mastermind behind the death of his parents. All his feelings of resentment and anger finally managed to awaken Danny's strength. However, Danny did not kill Madame Gao and preferred to arrest her. The scene switches, showing Harold, who suddenly rose from the dead. Harold, who knows that the killer is Ward, immediately goes back to the place to wait for him. We can see that Harold pretends to forgive Ward and promises to be a better father. In fact, he framed Ward and had him arrested by the police for heroin possession. Now Harold decides to replace Ward's position by soft controlling and using Joy. At the same time, Danny, Colleen, and Claire continued to interrogate Madame Gao, but suddenly Colleen was in pain because she was poisoned by one of Madame Gao's men. In that condition, Colleen also asked Danny to call her teacher named Bakudo, because Bakudo was the only person who could cure her from the poison. After Bakudo got there, he asked Danny to concentrate the Chai energy into Danny's hand and use that energy to remove the poison from Colleen's body. And with that method, Colleen was saved from the poison. After that, they moved Madame Gao as directed by Bakudo, but from a distance there was a young man who looked at their departure with suspicion. Bakudo then took them all to his Kung Fu training center. He said that it was the safest place for them at the moment. Colleen had been living there and practicing Kung Fu with Bakudo for a long time, so no wonder the people in that place were like family to Colleen. After that, Bakudo also invited Danny to train his Chai together. This is done so that Danny's Iron Fist ability becomes more mature and can later be controlled. Since his encounter with Bakudo, Danny has been suspicious, even though he is Colleen's teacher. But there are many things that are still mysterious regarding Bakudo's identity. As a result, Danny decided to investigate everything by going to the restricted area. In that area, Danny saw Madame Gao, who was locked up in a room. From their conversation, Madame Gao hinted that the place belonged to the Hand. Not believing it, Danny immediately asked Colleen about it, and Colleen unexpectedly admits that herself, Bakudo, and everyone there are indeed members of the Hand, which is automatically the biggest enemy of Iron Fist. Not intending to deceive Danny at all, Colleen said that Danny might have misunderstood the Hand all this time. Feeling disappointed, Danny returned to investigate the place. He then arrived at a computer room that contained CCTV footage. All recordings contained Danny's activities so far. Danny also expressed his anger by tearing the place apart. Not long after, Bakudo arrived and a fight broke out between them. Unexpectedly, the person who had been watching from afar was Danny's partner from Canlan named Davos. He was there to help Danny deal and fight with Bakudo's men. While fighting everything, Danny and Davos moved towards the exit. But unfortunately, the door was locked. For some reason, in such a precarious situation, Danny had difficulty using the power of Iron Fist. Until finally Colleen, who was inside, turned out to help Danny and Davos by opening the door for them. After successfully escaping, Davos explained his arrival there to pick up Danny. Because the interdimensional gate on Canlan has opened, so this is Danny's job as Iron Fist to guard Canlan. But apparently Danny refused Davos' invitation. He argued that his business there was still unfinished. Harold, who wants to be free, invites Danny to cooperate. Harold will lure Bakudo out, so Danny can finish him. On the other hand, Colleen, who has been considered a traitor, is now arrested by her own students. Fortunately, Colleen can still manage to escape and meet Danny. There was a great dilemma between the two of them because of what had happened before. Meanwhile, Bakudo is seen meeting Ward, who is considered to be a tool to provoke Danny's appearance, as well as so that Ward can take revenge on his father. Ward was assigned to arrange a meeting with Harold and also Joy. After the meeting took place, Bakudo immediately video calls with Denai while shooting Joy and threatening to cut off Harold's head. Seeing this, Ward felt sad and guilty because everything was not in accordance with their agreement. Fortunately, Danny arrived at the right time, so he could save Joy and Harold's lives. But instead, Danny is now caught by Bakudo and taken to a place. On the way, Danny releases his powers and begins to fight back. Of course, the fight is fair enough, because there are also Davos and Colleen who are ready to help Danny. But unfortunately, when it comes to killing Bakudo, Colleen is actually unable to do that. Because Danny also didn't want to kill anyone, Davos finally stepped in and stabbed Bakudo in the heart. What Davos did made Danny furious, but Davos also felt disappointed with Danny, because he thought it was the duty of an Iron Fist to kill the Hand's men. As a result, due to the argument, they did not realize that Bakudo's body was no longer there. The next day, Harold turns out to have betrayed Danny. He intends to control the entire company, so he slanders Danny by saying that Danny is involved in selling drugs. Madame Gao thinks that things like this are predictable. Someone like Harold would eventually want to own everything, because it turns out that Harlord was the one who masterminded behind Danny's family plane crash. Danny, who heard this, could not understand Harold's actions, especially after all the help given by his father in the past, plus all Danny's help so far. As a result, at night Danny, assisted by Colleen and Claire, decided to take revenge on Harold. Harold, who had expected it, deliberately hired full guard for him from various sides. But as an Iron Fist, facing someone like Harold is no problem for Danny. After unleashing the power of his Iron Fist, Danny saw Harold trying to get out through the rooftop. Danny fought Harold again and kicked him until he was impaled on a pipe. Harold, who was still holding on, tried to escape and grabbed his gun. But Ward suddenly came and shot his father, until he fell from the roof of the building. With Harold's death, the Rand Enterprises officially fell into Danny and Wand. Then in another place, Davos is seen asking Joy to kill Danny. There was also Madame Gao. The first season of the series ended by showing Colleen and Danny traveling to Canlin's Gate. But unfortunately, once there, they found nothing but the bloodied corpses of the monks. Danny thinks that the Hand has attacked Canlin. Danny, who is an Iron Fist, feels that he has failed to carry out his duties. This first season of the series was finished. The second season of the series opens by showing Danny Rand, who is seeing the movement of a Carven. The Carven belonging to the Hatchets group was suddenly robbed by the Golden Tigers group. Danny, who saw it firsthand, stopped and confronted the Golden Tigers group to thwarted them. As an Iron Fist, Danny feels in duties to make a peace in New York City. That's why he tried to eradicate the crime groups there. After completing his task, Danny immediately left before the police arrived. He currently lives along with Colleen in a dojo that has been modified to be their home. Danny works as a laborer in a transportation company, while Colleen works as a volunteer in a social office. While at work, Danny accidentally meets a street artist named Mary Walker. Mary is new there, so Danny helps her to get some information. Not long after, Danny gets a call from Rand Enterprises. Although Danny became the highest shareholder in Rand Enterprises, he chose not to work there. That's why he wanted to learn business from the bottom. Now Rand Enterprises is only managed by Ward. Long story short, Danny and Ward get an invitation from Joy to meet at her new house. It's been a long time since the three of them met. But Joy suddenly appeared with a new look and handed in a letter of resignation from Rand Enterprises. Joy decided to sell all her shares and start a new life. Ward, who heard this, of course immediately refused, but Danny, as the highest shareholder, immediately agreed. Danny doesn't want to argue with Joy's wishes, because according to Danny, Joy has the right to do whatever she wants. During a charity event at the office, Colleen accidentally finds a box with her family symbol, or it called Kaman. The Kaman on the box is exactly the same as the one on Colleen's sword. This made Colleen curious and started to find out where the box came from. One of her colleagues said that he got the box from a furniture store owner named Frank Choi. It didn't take long. Colleen went straight to the furniture store. Once there, she found no one because the store was closed. After a few weeks of asking a merchant, Colleen was advised to meet Frank Choi's cousin, Henry Yip. When she met Henry at his restaurant, he was being ganged up on by some punks, and Colleen ended up them for helping him. But when Colleen asked about Frank, Henry seemed to avoid her and just left. Not giving up there, Colleen and Danny tried to come back to Henry's restaurant. While they were enjoying their meal, some of the punks came back and stormed the restaurant. Colleen, of course, immediately meets them, while Danny has to face the Golden Tigers gang members who also come to the restaurant. When Danny and Colleen could defeat them all, then Henry comes out to meet them. Henry finally answers that Frank has been on the runaway for a few weeks because he owes the Golden Tigers gang a lot of money. On the way home, Danny and Colleen accidentally bump into Davos. In their conversation, Davos seems to be still disappointed with Danny over the loss of Kunlun. Davos thinks he is more entitled to get the Iron Fist status, and now he is determined to take the Iron Fist power from Danny at all costs. After the meeting, Danny felt worried and began to retrain his Iron Fist powers. Then the story switches, flashback to the time when Danny got the Iron Fist power. After winning the duel against Davos, it was seen that in that fight, both of them really exerted all their strength until finally, Danny came out as a winner, although Davos never admitted his defeat. The next day, Danny saw that there had been an attack on one of the Golden Tigers. It must have been done by a member of the Hatchets gang for the Carven robbery that happened before. Realizing that this problem would become longer, Danny went to see the Hatchets gang leader named Hai Qinyang. Danny asked Hai Qinyang to make peace with the Golden Tigers group. But Hai Qinyang, of course, rejected the request outright. After failing to persuade Hai King, Danny and Colleen went to see Hai King's wife, Sherry Yang. Colleen tried to ask Sherry to persuade her husband to reconcile with the Golden Tigers gang. After waiting for one night, Colleen received a call from Sherry. That night, Sherry invited Colleen and Danny to accompany her to negotiate with the Golden Tigers gang. Sherry said that her husband was out of the country on business, so she was asked to replace him. In the middle of the negotiations, Danny saw several members of the Golden Tigers as if they were getting ready to attack. Fearing for Sherry's safety, Danny asked her to leave the meeting and a fight ensued. Danny and Colleen tried to fight off all the Golden Tigers members. Likewise with Sherry, who also fought back. What happened in the negotiation process made Danny very sorry, because after all his actions yesterday would have an impact on the hostility between the two gangs. Because of this, Colleen tries to calm Danny down, and she will try to ask Sherry for a second chance to negotiate. On the other hand, we are also shown that it turns out that Mary is Davos' messenger. Davos and Joy deliberately hired Mary because they knew that Mary had dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personalities, with the name Walker as her second personality. Back to Danny and Colleen, after arriving at Sherry's residence, he says that what happened earlier has ignited the clash between the two gangs. Although they now want to make peace, the Golden Tigers gang has takeover and control the docks of port and is ready to fight the Hatchers gang. Sherry tells the truth that her husband had not actually gone abroad, but was lying weak from a stroke. When Danny checked on High King, he was surprised to see a bruise mark on her right neck. The mark was one of the kung fu techniques mastered by Davos. Danny also asked High King why Davos did all this, and High King only could answer Hancock 212. After leaving Sherry's residence, Danny and Colleen meet up with Detective Misty Knight, a friend who was given a robotic arm by Danny when he lost his arm. During the meeting, Misty explained that during the last failed negotiations, a policeman had undercover and infiltrated the Golden Tigers. The police were there to ambush the two gangs. Unfortunately, Danny foiled their plans, thinking that the people outside were members of the Golden Tigers who were about to attack. Misty also asks Danny to stay away from the two gangs and leave this matter to the police. Behind all that, Davos' presence continues to disturb Danny's mind. He also began to wonder about Davos' involvement, who had to attack High King. After relaying the message from High King, Misty translates the words. Hancock is the largest maritime shipping company in the world, while 212 is a unit number or shipping ship number. Hearing this, Danny immediately went to the dock to investigate everything. Meanwhile, at the dock, Davos had arrived first and immediately finished off the members of the Golden Tigers who were there. After that, he approached a Hancock 212 shipping crate that he ordered through High King. Unexpectedly, Davos actually ordered the body of the previous Iron Fist and took the tattooed chest skin from the surface. When Danny arrived at the dock, he was shocked to see the corpses of the Golden Tigers members and the shipping crate of Iron Fist's body. Soon Misty and Colleen also came to the pier. Danny then follows Davos to a train station. There he was suddenly attacked by Mary, who was now a walker. In the fight, Danny did not fight back at all because he still considered Mary as his friend. Mary then injected anesthetic into Danny's body, which made him even weaker. That way Mary managed to defeat Danny, even though Danny had picked up a call from Colleen to tell her about Mary. Only then did Mary drag Danny to a place. In that mysterious place, Danny, who was tied, saw several women and Davos, who was lying down. It was that Davos is preparing a ritual to transfer the power of the Iron Fist into his body. A woman approached to Danny and slashed his stomach. Danny's blood was then mixed with the burnt ashes of the previous Iron Fist skin. The mixture was then used as ink to tattoo Davos' back. After performing several rituals, Davos approached Danny and began the process of transferring Iron Fist power into his body. After successfully completing all the rituals, Davos immediately tested the power of Iron Fist by punching a thick wall. Unexpectedly, Davos had actually managed to transfer Danny's Iron Fist power into his body. After having that power, he immediately finished off several members of the Golden Tigers who were on patrol. Not only that, Davos also went to visit a nightclub that was used by the Golden Tigers gang to hang out. In front of the Golden Tigers gang leader, Davos said that the war between Triad gangs was over and he would be the one who ended it all. Hearing this, the Golden Tiger's leader ordered his men to attack Davos. But with the power of his iron fist, Davos could defeat them very easily, until finally Davos punched the leader of the Golden Tigers and made him dead. One of the remaining Golden Tigers members then begged Davos not to be killed. The member named Chen Wu said that he knew all the gang's locations and was willing to deliver Davos. The next day, Mary took Danny to a dock and left him alone there. Danny, who was still very weak at that time, was later found by the gangsters he had previously met. The boys planned to hand Danny over to the Golden Tigers gang so that they could get a reward. Danny, who recognized one of the kids, then asked for his help to contact Colleen. Danny promised to give a reward if the boy would help him. Long story short, Colleen and Misty arrived on time to pick up Danny. After being taken to the dojo, Ward asked his colleague Bethany for help in taking care of Danny. At the same time, Ward tells Misty that Mary is known to be a member of the Special Forces, but due to her health problems, Mary was eventually expelled from membership. After hearing what happened to Danny and Davos, Ward feels worried about Joy's safety. That's why Colleen and Misty went to see Joy to find out where Davos was. It turned out that there was also Mary, who immediately attacked Misty. There was a fierce fight between them. Finally, Colleen and Misty managed to catch Mary. After that, Colleen and Misty took Joy and Mary to the dojo. Their Joy finally admitted that the plan to transfer the power of Iron Fist was her and Davos' idea. Of course, everything could not be separated from Mary's intervention that they had hired. Hearing this, Danny was very disappointed and surprised. He did not expect Joy did it to him, who like his own brother. After being arrested, Misty began to interrogate Joy and Mary about Davos. After all, what Davos did to Danny could not be separated from their intervention. Misty was curious about the steps required for the Iron Fist removal ritual. Joy explains that it is an ancient ritual where the heart of a dragon is transferred from one person to another through the art of Tebori. To complete the ritual, Davos is assisted by female tattooists called the Crane Sisters. After the interrogation, Danny and the others discuss how to stop Davos. It was noted that until now Davos had killed so many people, especially gang members. Even so, Danny plans to talk to Davos, in the hope that Davos will be willing to obey his orders. Of course, Misty and the others disagree, because it is very unlikely. Certainly for now, they need to take back Danny's Iron Fist power by using the same ritual. Therefore, Misty and Colleen said goodbye to go find the Crane Sisters to help carry out the ritual. Not long after, Mary met Danny and Ward. Mary, who is currently a walker, offers to help Danny catch Davos. But of course it was not free, because Walker asked for a fee of $500 million if the mission was successful. Ward also forbids Danny to trust Walker, because she was once an accomplice of Davos. But Walker proves her words by showing her untied hands, where if she wanted, Walker could have escaped earlier. As a result, Danny trusted Walker and agreed to her offer. Before going to Davos' base, Walker prepares all the tools they need to face Davos. While getting ready, Walker also told Danny about the mental condition she was experiencing. Namely, when in certain conditions such as stress, increased heart rate, and adrenaline, then she will become Walker. Conversely, when she hears the sound of rain or flowing water, sees bright lights, and is too cold for too long, she will turn into Mary. Each of these personalities is independent. So when she becomes Mary, she will not remember any events Walker do, and vice versa. Long story short, Mary and Danny set off for Davos' location. That location is a warehouse where Davos carries out the Iron Fist transfer ritual. There Danny also learned that Walker was not entirely helpful, because actually she also has the desire to kill Davos according to orders from Joy. However, Walker and Joy did not want to be dragged further into Davos' problems. Hearing this, Danny also asked Walker not to kill Davos and promised to realize Walker's dream if she followed his plan. However, Danny did not have the slightest intention of hurting Davos. Danny just wants to make him wake up what he did it was wrong. On the other hand, Colleen and Misty finally arrived at the Crane Sisters' place. At first, they deliberately disguised themselves as customers, but the Crane Sisters quickly knowing their disguise. As a result, Misty directly showed her identity, while asking how they helped Davos. Of course, the Crane sisters did not immediately tell the truth. Instead, they fought Colleen and Misty. After a fierce battle, the Crane sisters were defeated, so they were forced to tell information about the ritual. The Crane sisters explained that in the ritual, they needed an ancient bowl to be a container for the tattoo ink they would use. It was part of the ritual, and the bowl was prepared by Davos himself. Not long after, Davos and Chen Wu finally arrived at the warehouse. As soon as he got off the car, Danny went straight to Davos. He wanted to question the reason why Davos was doing all this. Davos replied that he was currently carrying out his duties as the Iron Fist, which was to protect the city from criminals. The criminals are like a virus that will only have a bad impact if allowed to settle in the body. This is what Danny as Iron Fist should have done in the past. But because Danny is considered incompetent by him, Davos must seize his power and take on the role of Iron Fist. Danny also reminded him that there would be police who would not remain silent about Davos' actions. Sooner or later, they will definitely find Davos and arrest him. Davos doesn't care what Danny says and will continue his mission to slaughter the gang. Suddenly, Walker came out of hiding and immediately attacked Davos. When Walker tried to inject Davos with anesthetic, Davos unleashed the power of Iron Fist, which made Danny and Walker bounce away. Not giving up just like that, Danny got back up and tried to stick the injection. Davos then countered Danny's attack and delivered his fist on one of Danny's legs until the bone cracked. The anesthetic took effect and knocked Davos conscious down. After that, Walker immediately helped Danny and called an ambulance, but then it rained, making Walker turn into Mary. Danny tried to call the Walker to catch Davos, who was unconscious, but Mary doesn't remember anything and just leaves. Danny was taken to the hospital to get treatment on his leg. Thanks to the help of Ward, Danny got the best treatment from the hospital to speed up the healing process. But Danny felt uncomfortable being in the hospital for too long, so he decided to return to the dojo. They also discussed how to reclaim the power of Iron Fist from Davos. Based on information from the Crane sisters, the transfer ritual requires an ancient bowl. After remembering, Ward ever said that he had seen Joy and Davos attending an antique auction event. As a result, Misty immediately went to Joy's house to inquire further. Once there, Joy said that she got the bowl from a collector named Micah Prada. Not waiting long, Misty immediately met Micah Prada. There, Misty asked about a similar ancient bowl that Joy had bought the other day. But apparently Micah revealed that there was only one ancient bowl. Then Micah showed an ancient scroll related to the bowl. Since it was impossible to carry it, Misty taken a picture of the ancient scroll to serve as a clue. At the same time, Colleen and Danny were busy printing flyers to help them find Davos. Once at the dojo, Misty explains about the information she got. On the picture of the ancient scroll is an inscription in ancient Tibetan, which has a meaning about the procedure of the Iron Fist removal ritual and how dangerous it is if the ritual fails or uncompleted. Because if that happened, then both people involved risked losing their lives. Realizing how dangerous Davos is, Misty hopes that she can get help from the local police station to stop Davos. In addition to continuing the killing spree, Davos is also recruiting a gang of local kids. Davos plans to train them as soldiers to help fight against crime. One night, Danny asks Colleen to train him so that he can recover quickly. Although she initially refuses, Colleen eventually agrees to train Danny. Day by day, Danny's abilities continued to improve. Not long after, Colleen received a report that Davos was moving towards James Wong's apartment. Sherry also happened to be there. Colleen immediately went to the apartment and secured Sherry. Although Danny actually wanted to fight Davos, Colleen forbade it. In the parking lot, Colleen met Chen Wu and a fierce battle ensued, while Danny was in charge of guarding Sherry to the car. With good cooperation, they managed to escape from Davos. The failure made Davos very angry at Chen Wu, because only the two of them know about this attack plan. This is because of the flyers installed by Danny and Colleen, so that wherever Davos goes, there will definitely be people who report his movements. Because of Davos' actions, the Golden Tigers and the Hatchet's gang members instead united to fight Davos. Danny and Colleen try to hold them back so that no one else becomes a victim. Danny and Colleen also asked the two groups to entrust Davos' problem to them. Unfortunately, all gang members disagree and prefer to catch Davos in their own way. Meanwhile, Joy visits Davos' base to look for something. Apparently, Joy began to realize that Davos had gone too far. She also began to switch side. Their Joy was assisted by BB to steal an ancient bowl that Davos had hidden in the wall. After succeeding, Joy told BB to deliver the bowl to Colleen. At the same time, Colleen trained Danny to put aside his feelings in fighting, in order to eliminate the feeling of not having the heart to hurt Davos. In the last training session, Danny was still unable to fight Colleen and only avoided attacks. This is very contrary to the soul needed for an Iron Fist. As a result, Danny also proposed that Colleen take over the power, but unfortunately Colleen refused Danny's request to take the power of Iron Fist. In the evening, Misty returned with a police task force ready to arrest Davos as well as Frank Choi, who had made a deal to fight the Golden Tigers. Back at the dojo, Danny is practicing the Iron Fist transfer hand move. Misty suddenly arrived with Frank Choi, the owner of the antique shop. Colleen, who had wanted to meet Frank Choi about the box with her family's Cayman, immediately asked him where he got the box. Frank told her that he was also a documents maker to get into New York. There was a woman who had brought the box to him for documents. The woman said that the box was very valuable, while telling a story of a woman who fell in love with a fisherman. The fisherman was harassed by pirates, and the women retaliated and defeated the pirates. Colleen felt very familiar with the story. Then Frank added that only she knew the story of the pirate queen from Pinghai Bay, and the box, she said, be made from the mast of the pirate ship. From Frank's information, Colleen concludes that her mom came to New York and may still be in the city. The next day, Danny was informed that Sherry and the gang were preparing to attack Davos. Danny and Colleen try to stop them. Danny promises that he will stop Davos tonight. Not long after, BB arrives with the bowl Danny needs. BB explains that he was sent by Joy to deliver the ancient bowl. On the other hand, Davos realizes the bowl is gone. He immediately hurt Joy by pushing her off the balcony. After that, Davos went to Danny's place to reclaim the bowl. Davos also invited the BB gang members to help him. The only way to stop Davos was with drugs, so Colleen advised Danny to look for him immediately. Davos also kills one of them. Not long after, he confronts Danny. Danny apologizes to Davos for what happened in Kwanlun, but Davos, who had been covered by anger, didn't care about Danny's words. Davos immediately attacked him. In the midst of the fierce battle, Danny also tried to inject anesthetic into Davos' body. Davos eventually fainted. Outside, BB confronts his gang. He tries to explain everything to them, but he is killed instead. Colleen, who saw it, immediately beat them up, until finally Misty and the police arrived. Feeling guilty about BB's death, Colleen agreed to take over the power of Iron Fist. After that, they met with the Crane sisters at the dojo to perform the ritual. Everything went quite smoothly. But in the middle of the process, the ritual was suddenly interrupted because Davos had wake up and attacked them. Danny warned Davos to let Colleen complete the ritual, because if the ritual failed, they would both be killed. But Davos ignored Danny's words and ran away. Arriving at the warehouse, he looked for Chen Wu, but he was killed by Walker. Their Walker also attacked Davos until finally Danny and Colleen arrived. Danny tried to stop Walker, because if Davos was killed, then Colleen would also be in danger. In the midst of that situation, Misty came to help Danny to stop Walker. They also broke the water pipe and turned on the cell phone flashlight so that Walker turned back into Mary again. After that, Colleen fought Davos and was able to get the remaining Iron Fist power from his body. Davos asked Colleen to kill him, but Colleen refused. As a result, when Davos was about to attack, Colleen activated her Iron Fist power and threw Davos far enough. In the end, Davos was defeated and arrested by the police. Arriving at the dojo, Danny cleans up the remnants of last night's chaos. He accidentally sees Colleen's metal emblem, which has a dragon on the back. When Colleen returned to the dojo, she couldn't find Danny. Danny left a letter that said he had discovered a fact that Colleen was destined to become an Iron Fist from the beginning. Because of that, Colleen's ancestor was someone who first defeated the dragon in Kunlun, as well as the first female Iron Fist. Danny also decided to leave New York to find Orson Randall, the man who sent the Iron Fist corpse to Davos. Ward faithfully accompanied Danny. And months later, Danny has stolen 2 weapons from Randall, which he can use to improve the Iron Fist power, while Colleen prepares to protect the streets of New York City's Chinatown as the new Iron Fist, and this season of the series is finally finished.